Silent signals from the void. The quantum resonance detector aboard the Meridian's edge had been silent for 3 months when it suddenly screamed to life. Captain Zara Thorne jolted awake in her command chair as alarms flooded the bridge with urgent red light. Her coffee mug crashed to the deck, spreading dark liquid across the metal flooring like spilled blood. "Report," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos as her crew scrambled to their stations. "Captain, we're picking up massive quantum echoes from Sector 7 Alpha," called out Navigator Lysa Voss from her console. The pale woman's cybernetic implants glowed blue as she interfaced directly with the ship's sensors. "The signal strength is off the charts. Whatever's out there is broadcasting with the power of a dying star." Zara frowned and pulled up the sector map on her command display. Sector 7 Alpha was marked with the universal symbol for dead spacer, region where nothing had existed for as long as galactic civilization had been keeping records. According to every survey ship that had passed through that area over the past 1,000 years, it contained nothing but cosmic dust and background radiation. "Are we certain the equipment is functioning properly?" she asked, running her fingers through her short black hair. After 15 years commanding survey vessels for the Terran Exploration Consortium, she had learned to trust her instruments. But she had also learned that the universe enjoyed throwing impossible situations at anyone brave enough to look for them. Dr. Marcus Chen looked up from his Xenequology station, his brown eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, I've cross-referenced the quantum signature with our entire database. This isn't equipment malfunction. Something in that sector is actively manipulating space-time itself. The energy patterns are unlike anything in recorded galactic history." Kekstar, the ship's fourth-arc engineer, chittered nervously as his forearms danced across multiple control panels simultaneously. His crystalline carapace reflected the bridge lights in patterns that indicated deep concern. "Captain Thorne, these readings suggest technology far beyond current galactic capabilities. Even the ancient precursor ruins we've studied show nothing like this level of quantum manipulation." Zara studied the data streaming across her screens. The Galactic Survey Corps had sent the Meridian's Edge to this remote region to investigate reports of unusual stellar drift patterns. What they had found instead was something that challenged everything they thought they knew about their corner of the galaxy. "Lisa, plot a course for the source of those signals," she ordered. "Dr. Chen, I want you monitoring every scanner we have. If there's something out there that's been hiding in empty space for who knows how long, I want to know what we're dealing with before we get close enough for it to notice us." The Meridian's Edge was built for long-range exploration and equipped with the best sensors the Terran Consortium could provide. As they approached Sector 7 Alpha over the next 18 hours, their instruments began picking up increasingly impossible readings. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Chen called out, his voice tight with disbelief. "I'm detecting a complete star system where our charts show empty space. Not just 1 or 2 planets, we're talking about a full solar system with at least 8 worlds, 3 of which appear to be in the habitable zone." Zara moved to stand behind his station, studying the sensor displays that showed a yellow star surrounded by orbital bodies that definitely had not been there during the last official survey 50 years ago. "How is an entire star system just appearing on our sensors?" "It's not appearing," Captain Lysa interjected from her navigation console. "It's been there all along. What we're seeing is some kind of massive cloaking field breaking down. The quantum echoes we detected were the first cracks in whatever technology has been hiding this place." Kekstar's mandibles clicked rapidly, sign of extreme agitation in his species. The energy requirements to hide an entire star system would be enormous. Even with precursor technology, maintaining such a field for extended periods would require the power output of multiple stars. As they drew closer, their sensors revealed details that made the mystery even deeper. The third planet from the star showed clear signs of terraforming and artificial structures. Cities dotted the continents, connected by transportation networks that followed geometric patterns too precise to be natural. But there was something wrong with the entire picture. Life signs? Zara asked. Dr. Chen shook his head slowly. That's the strange part, Captain. I'm detecting massive energy signatures that suggest advanced civilization, but no clear biological readings. It's as if the planet is inhabited by ghosts, or by something our sensors aren't designed to detect. Lysa added ominously as the Meridian's edge entered the outer edge of the hidden star system. They triggered something that had been waiting patiently for visitors. A network of defensive satellites suddenly activated, emerging from what had appeared to be empty space around them. These weren't the crude orbital weapons platforms used by most galactic civilizations. They were sleek constructs that seemed to bend light around themselves, making them nearly invisible until they chose to reveal their presence. Captain, we're being scanned, Kexter reported, his voice tight with worry. Multiple targeting sensors have locked onto our ship, but they're not firing. A voice suddenly filled the bridge, speaking in perfect galactic standard with an accent that Zara couldn't immediately place. Unknown vessel, identify yourselves and state your species composition. Zara activated the ship's communication system. This is Captain Zara Thorne of the Terran vessel Meridian's Edge. We're on a scientific survey mission. Who am I speaking with? There was a long pause before the voice responded. When it did, there was something different in its tone. That might have been surprise, or perhaps relief. Terran vessel, maintain your current position while we verify your genetic markers. Genetic markers, Dr. Chen whispered. Why would a defensive system care about our DNA? The answer came minutes later when the scanning beams focused specifically on the human members of the crew. Whatever technology was analyzing them seemed to find what it was looking for, because the threatening presence of the defense satellites suddenly shifted to something that felt almost welcoming. Terran vessel Meridian's Edge, you are cleared. For approach to new Terra colony, follow the beacon to landing platform 7. Be advised that you are the first outside contact we have received in 512 years. The bridge fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. 512 years was significant in human history, marked the beginning of what historians called the Great Silence, a period when dozens of human colonies had simply stopped all communication with Earth and the other established worlds. Most had been presumed lost to various disasters or hostile alien encounters. Captain, Dr. Chen said quietly, if this is really a surviving colony from the Great Silence period, they might have information about what happened to all the other lost settlements. Zara nodded grimly. The Great Silence had been one of the most devastating periods in human expansion history. In the span of less than 50 years, contact had been lost with over 60 colony ships and settlements. The survivors had never learned what caused the mass disappearances, leading to centuries of cautious expansion and defensive preparations. As they followed the guidance beacon toward the planet's surface, their sensors revealed more details about New Terra colony. The settlements were vast, covering entire continents with architectural styles that were recognizably human but evolved far beyond anything used in mainstream galactic civilization. The buildings seemed to pulse with their own internal light, and energy readings suggested technology that was both familiar and completely alien. "The power signatures down there are incredible," Kekstar reported. "They're generating more energy than most space stations, but I can't identify the source. It's not fusion, not antimatter, not even the exotic matter techniques used by the most advanced species. And the population readings are still inconsistent," Dr. Chen added. "I'm detecting what might be 50,000 life forms, but they don't register as fully biological or fully artificial. It's like they exist somewhere in between." As the Meridian's edge descended through New Terra's atmosphere, they could see the planet's surface in detail for the first time. The continents were covered with cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, their buildings rising like crystal trees toward the sky. Rivers of light flowed between the structures, carrying energy or information in patterns too complex for their instruments to decode. "Captain, incoming transmission from the surface," Lysa announced. A new voice filled the bridge, this one clearly human but with qualities that were difficult to define. It carried harmonics that seemed to resonate directly in their minds, rather than just their ears. "Welcome to New Terra, fellow children of Earth. I am Alina Vasquez, current speaker for the collective. We have much to discuss." Dr. Chen's face went pale. Captain Alina Vasquez was the lead scientist for the New Terra expedition. According to our records, she would be over 600 years old. "Then either our records are wrong, or something very unusual has happened to the colonists," Zara replied. "Prepare for landing, but keep the ship ready for immediate departure. I have a feeling we're about to learn why this colony has been hiding from the galaxy for 5 centuries. As the Meridian's edge touched down on landing platform 7, they could see figures approaching from the nearby structures. They moved with fluid grace that suggested perfect coordination, as if they shared a single consciousness distributed across multiple bodies. Their faces were human, but their eyes held depths that spoke of experiences far beyond normal human existence. "Whatever happened to these colonists?" Zara murmured as she watched them approach. "They're not quite human anymore. The question is whether that makes them more dangerous or more valuable to the galaxy's future." The landing ramp extended, and Captain Zara Thorne prepared to step into a mystery that had been hidden from the galaxy for over 500 years. What she would discover would not only solve the puzzle of the Great Silence, but reveal that humanity had developed capabilities that made even the galaxy's most powerful civilizations tremble with either fear or anticipation. The truth about New Terra Colony would change everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the cosmos, and the choice they would face would determine whether the human species would embrace transcendence or remain forever bound by the limitations they had always accepted. When humanity transcended fear, itself, Alina Vasquez stood before them in the colony's central chamber. But calling her simply human would have been like calling a star simply bright. Her physical form appeared to be that of a woman in her 30s, but her eyes held the weight of centuries, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions the crew of the Meridian's edge couldn't quite perceive. "You must be wondering how I can still be alive after 600 years, she said, gesturing for Captain Thorne and her team to sit in chairs that seemed to grow from the living crystal floor. "The answer to that question will help you understand what we became and why we've remained hidden from galactic civilization." Dr. Chen activated his recording equipment, though he noticed the devices were behaving strangely in the chambers. "Energy field. Dr. Vasquez, our records indicate that New Terra Colony went silent during the Great Silence period. What happened here?" Elena's expression darkened, and for a moment the chamber around them seemed to pulse with shared emotion. We were invaded by something the galaxy has tried very hard to forget. The Devaka Empire reached this system 513 years ago with a fleet of 10,000 ships and orders to harvest our population for their slave markets. Kexter's crystalline carapace clicked nervously. The Vorthok had ancient legends about the Devaka species of conquerors who had supposedly vanished from the galaxy centuries ago, leaving behind only whispered warnings and dead worlds. The Devaka were real, he asked, his forearms trembling slightly. Very real, Alina confirmed. They had conquered 17 star systems before reaching us, enslaving or destroying every intelligent species they encountered. Their technology was beyond anything the early human colonies possessed. Our defensive fleet lasted exactly 4 minutes and 27 seconds against their advanced scouts. Captain Thorne leaned forward. But obviously you survived. How did 50,000 colonists defeat an empire that had conquered multiple star systems? Alina smiled, but it was not entirely a human expression anymore. We cheated. We abandoned the limitations that evolution had placed on human consciousness and became something that the Devaka Empire was completely unprepared to face. She gestured, and the air around them filled with holographic displays showing the colony as it had been over 5 centuries ago. Normal human settlements with familiar architecture and technology, populated by people who looked like they could have come from any human world. When the Devaka siege began, we had perhaps 72 hours before their main fleet arrived to finish what their scouts had started. Our military was destroyed, our orbital defenses were rubble, and our communication systems were jammed. By every conventional measure, we were doomed. The holographic display shifted, showing massive alien ships surrounding the planet while desperate colonists gathered in emergency shelters. But we had been working on something that the Devaka, in all their conquests, had never encountered. Dr. Sarah Kim, our quantum consciousness researcher, had discovered that human neural patterns could be synchronized with the planet's quantum field structure. The process was theoretical, untested, and potentially fatal. Dr. Chen looked up from his instruments. Quantum consciousness, synchronization. The energy requirements alone would be enormous. New Terra has unusual geological properties, Alina explained. The planet's core contains crystalline formations that naturally generate quantum fields. We had been studying them for potential energy applications, but Dr. Kim realized they could be used to link human minds directly to the fundamental forces that shape reality. Navigator Lysa, whose cybernetic implants gave her enhanced understanding of quantum mechanics, suddenly went pale. You merged your consciousness with the planet itself. Not just the planet, Alina corrected. We merged with the quantum foam that underlies all existence in this region of space. 50,000 human minds linked together and synchronized, with the basic forces that determine what is real and what is possible. The holographic display showed the process as it had occurred. Humans entering crystalline chambers throughout the colony, while energy patterns connected them in an ever-expanding network of shared consciousness. The transformation had taken 18 hours, during which the approaching Devaka fleet had detected the massive energy expenditure and accelerated their attack schedule. What we became was still human at its core, Alina continued, but human will and determination amplified through quantum fields and focused through collective consciousness. When the Devaka fleet arrived to claim their new slaves, they found something that their entire philosophy of conquest was unprepared to handle. The display shifted to show the battle, though calling it a battle was perhaps inaccurate. The Devaka fleet had descended on New Terra, expecting to face desperate refugees. Instead, they encountered 50,000 humans who had become living manifestations of pure determination and focused will. The Devaka were used to facing species that fought with weapons and technology, Alina explained. They had never encountered a civilization that could fight with reality itself. When their warriors tried to land on our surface, we simply convinced the universe that their ships didn't belong in our space. Captain Thorne stared at the display showing massive Devaka warships simply vanishing from existence, not destroyed, but edited out of reality as if they had never been there. You're saying you wished them out of existence? It's more complex than that, Alina replied. Human consciousness, when properly focused and amplified, can influence quantum probability fields. We didn't destroy the Devaka forces. We made it extremely unlikely that they could continue to exist in our local space-time region. The demonstration had terrified the Devaka Empire more than any weapon could have. Their entire military doctrine was based on superior firepower and ruthless determination. They had never faced an enemy that could simply decide their weapons wouldn't work and make reality conform to that decision. The remaining Devaka fleet retreated to what they thought was a safe distance and tried to bombard us from orbit. Alina continued. We convinced the quantum field that their energy weapons were actually beneficial to our ecosystem. Their plasma bombardment became fertilizer for our crystal gardens. Kekstar was chittering continuously now, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. What happened to the Empire after that? They sent larger fleets, Alina said simply. Each time, we demonstrated that human will, properly focused and amplified, could overcome any conventional military force. After their third attempt failed, the Devaka leadership made a decision that probably saved the galaxy from a much larger conflict. The holographic display showed the final confrontation, where a Devaka armada numbering in the millions of ships had gathered at the edge of the New Terra system. But instead of attacking, they had sent a single communication. They offered us a deal, Alina explained. They would abandon their expansion into this region of the galaxy and never threaten human colonies again. If we agreed to remain on New Terra and never use our abilities beyond this system. Dr. Chen looked confused. But that would mean that Great Silence wasn't about colonies being destroyed, was about them agreeing to hide. Exactly. The Devaka Empire quietly contacted every human colony in their expansion path and offered them the same choice. Develop defensive capabilities beyond their current technology and agree to isolation or face conventional invasion. Most colonies chose isolation and began working on their own versions of our transformation. Captain Thorne felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying there are dozens of human colonies out there with capabilities like yours? Were, Alina corrected sadly. Most of the colonies that attempted similar transformations were unsuccessful. The process requires specific planetary conditions and a very particular kind of human determination. Of the 63 colonies that went silent during that period, only 12 survived their attempts at transcendence. The revelation hit the crew of the Meridian's Edge like a physical blow. The Great Silence hadn't been about human colonies being lost to disaster or alien aggression. It had been about humanity's first attempt to evolve beyond the limitations that kept them vulnerable to galactic predators. What happened to the Devaka Empire? Captain Thorne asked. Elena's expression became grim. They retreated to the galactic rim and eventually collapsed internally. An empire built on conquest and subjugation couldn't survive contact with a species that could simply choose not to be conquered. Their entire social structure crumbled within a generation. But that's not why we're revealing ourselves now, she continued. 3 months ago, our quantum sensors detected something approaching from dark space beyond the galactic edge, something that makes the Devika Empire look like frightened children playing with toys. The holographic display shifted to show deep space readings that made their instruments look primitive by comparison. Massive objects moving through the void between galaxies, following trajectories that would bring them into contact with galactic civilization within the next century. We call them the Harvesters, Alina explained. They consume entire galaxies, not for resources or territory, but to feed something that exists outside normal space-time. They've been dormant in the void for millions of years, but something has awakened them. Navigator Lysa studied the readings with growing horror. These objects are the size of entire star systems. How could conventional military forces fight something like that? They can't, Alina said simply, which is why we're breaking our 500-year isolation. Humanity needs to evolve, Captain Thorne. Not just the colonies that survived the first transformation, but all of human civilization. The techniques we developed here can be adapted and improved. What took us 50,000 people and a planet-sized quantum field can now be accomplished with smaller groups using portable enhancement technology. She gestured, and crystalline devices materialized from the chamber walls. They were beautiful, an alien, but somehow recognizably human in their design philosophy. These are quantum consciousness amplifiers, Alina explained. They can temporarily link human minds and focus their collective will through artificial quantum fields. A single ship's crew using these devices could become capable of feats that would seem like magic to current galactic civilization. Dr. Chen reached toward one of the devices, then stopped. What's the cost? Transformation like this can't come without sacrifice. Elena's expression became infinitely sad. The cost is that we're no longer quite human in the way your species understands the term. We share thoughts, emotions, and experiences across our collective consciousness. Individual identity becomes less important than group purpose. We've gained incredible power, but we've lost some of the individual creativity and independence that made humanity unique. Captain Thorne stood and walked to the chamber's viewing wall, looking out at the crystal cities that pulsed with shared thoughts and common purpose. The colonists moved through their daily activities with perfect coordination, but she noticed that they rarely smiled or showed the individual quirks and personality traits that made humans interesting. You're asking us to choose between remaining human and surviving the coming threat, she said. We're offering you the choice, Alina corrected. The galaxy will face the Harvesters, whether humanity evolves or not. But evolved humans could potentially save not just our species, but every intelligent life form in the galaxy. The question is whether individual human identity is worth preserving, if it means accepting extinction for everyone. The chamber fell, silent except for the subtle harmonics of the quantum field that connected the colony's consciousness. Captain Thorne realized that her decision would determine not just the fate of her crew, but potentially the future evolution of human civilization. If we accept these devices and return to human space, what happens then? Alina smiled, and for the first time, the expression was purely human. Then humanity gets to choose its own future. Some will embrace the transformation and become something beyond current human limitations. Others will choose to remain as they are and accept whatever fate awaits unevolved consciousness. But for the first time in 500 years, humanity will face the universe's challenges with the full spectrum of its potential. Captain Thorne looked at her crew, seeing the fear and excitement in their eyes as they contemplated a choice that would echo through galactic history. The quantum consciousness amplifiers waited on their crystalline pedestals, offering power beyond imagination at the cost of everything they thought they knew about being human. The echo of new Terra's signal was already spreading through space, carrying the news that humanity had options its leaders had never imagined. The choice between evolution and extinction was no longer theoretical light, was sitting on a table in front of them, waiting for someone brave enough to reach out and grasp the future.